Hi, this is Transmission D, and once again back at work on Transmission Borne, a 2D real-time strategy game about containing an ongoing epidemic. And it's time to revamp the game visual, the way this whole thing looks like. In the last devlog, I've talked about all the mechanics and features which allow the player to well play. In other words, I've added the main core gameplay. But something is still missing as the game itself looks kinda plain. By that I mean that everything's like, oh look, a square, and the circle, yet more differently colored squares, and circle, some actually well done art, thanks to man, and squares. So now I had to add the sprinkles, and by that I mean to make it look good. First of all, I wanted to change the looks of the action tab with something else. It was basically just a cyan rectangle, which doesn't really bring the best out of visual quality. And after thinking about it for some time, I rounded up the corners, put a border, and some semi-transparency, and also made the color a bit darker. This is the result. Not the best art ever, but I dare you to tell me does it look like 5 times nicer. Oh wait, you actually said that? You were supposed to, it was a rhetorical there. What? No, no, I'm not gonna give you $100. We didn't even bet. I then carried on with most of everything else. I rounded up the corners of this blue thing below, the fans and awareness indicators, and all the menus, introduction, pause, and game end. So it all looked much nicer and smoother. I also had to organize it a little bit, so I rounded it all up in one single file. The program I used to make this is Inkscape, by the way, and I recommend it if you're looking for a free and good alternative to the professional stuff. Anyways, I also had some more ideas regarding the features of the game, which were lying around in the notes I made to not forget them as I have the memory of a goldfish. First of all is the data list. It gives access to information, like how many sick people there are, useful to assess the situation of the epidemic, and also some cool statistics for nerds like me. This was too a rectangle with rounded corners and a border, with some smaller rectangles in it which act as a background for the text displaying the data. I mean, it's not state-of-the-art art, but it definitely looks cool. Then, to open it, I made a small side button, just like for the Actions tab, which will send a message telling the Data tab to either open up or close. This lighting effect was made using a progression value, which can be toggled to shift between the closed and opened value. This way we can also close it while it's still trying to open up, if you change your mind or something. Then, for the data, aka the information itself, I made it so that when anything relevant happens to one of the dots, which still represent the people in this epidemic scenario, it sends a message to the data list manager telling what happened so that the data manager can decide how to change the data. Once done that, I also added the final set of actions, the society actions. They can do either one of several things: increase the amount of funds you get to buy more actions, which help contain the epidemic, decrease the price of the actions themselves, or decrease the score value loss dealt by infections and deaths. Remember that the score value determines whether you win or lose. And regarding the actions, I also added a border which acts as an indicator. A gray border means the action can be bought and hasn't been yet. A green one means it has already been bought and it can be bought again to increase its tier. A red border instead means that the action has reached maximum tier and can't be bought anymore. This will hopefully help the players take decisions more quickly. Last but not least, I added the scan rapid action. Unlocked by buying the rapid scan passive action, then activated by clicking on its corresponding button, the one with the radar grid on it, it scans down the selected circular area to look for any previously undetected infections. Even though my initial plan for this design was a circle, which would just then disappear once it scanned an area, combine this with the chance of there being no sick people to scan at all, the player will get the impression that literally nothing happened and that the scan's useless. So I worked on a rotating scanner animation which would then fade away once an area is scanned down, thus indicating it has been used up. Then I also made another animation for the quarantine rapid action. Its purpose is to indicate how long until its chew fades away. As for the graphics of it, it's still a circle but now with a biohazard symbol on it, which at the very least suggests its use other than the name itself. Quarantine rapid action, quarantine. Then I chased down those pesky little bugs, removed some of them, but not all of them. Like imagine someone actually doing that. And now this is what it looks like. Much better, isn't it? Yet there's still something missing. Whenever you open a game, you're usually greeted with a mixture of many gases molecules vibes, as known as noise, ordered in several patterns humans call music. Game music is more commonly called soundtrack, and soundtrack is important to set the mood. And if the mood were devoid, silence would be perfect. But as this is supposed to feel at least somewhat entertaining, I had to make some music. I had never made music before, like ever. I didn't know where to start or how, so I was quite afraid of making some really, really shitty stuff. Okay, never mind. I downloaded LMMS, a free digital audio workstation, followed a few tutorials, and that was my literally first trial. Apparently, I am way better than expected, but I never knew that as I had never tried. Guess you never really know what you can and can't do until you actually try. Anyways, life lessons apart, what you just listened to is actually never going to make it into the game, as it doesn't fit the atmosphere I'm trying to reach. But it's still good to know I'm actually quite good at making gas vibe spatters. So I had to give it some thought. First of all, I started off with a bass, series of repeated sounds which will set the tempo, the tone, and the foundation of the soundtrack itself. I wanted to give an idea of abnormal peacefulness. Everything seems calm at first, but too calm. And what best way to describe that feeling other than the one thing you always hear when everything else is silent? The heartbeat. This isn't the actual sound of a heartbeat, but it's a good representation of it. It also perfectly sets the tempo and tone of the soundtrack, and it's kind of a stretch, but most humans would consider the heartbeat somewhat linked to diseases, which is the main theme of the game anyways. Now, proceed with the bass. I set one main low key note as the beginning. I add some lower and higher keys to make a melody. I spice things up with some shorter notes, which act to add variety and pace. Then I make a variation out of what I got so far, keeping most of the longer notes while changing many of the shorter ones, which follows to add progression. I take the beginning part, introduce the shorter notes by adding them gently. I take the final part and interrupt them suddenly. They try to keep going, but they start going away. Everything goes silent. And then you get this.